Within Kreedz Climbing, a true philosophical question can be asked and unraveled, and that is the nature of existence within capitalism. Can you truly escape? In an existence absent of an intentionally meaningful story, and without meaning beyond a simple obstacle course upon which completion of its most difficult jumps and lunges will provide you with, if only for a moment, a small, temporary sense of joy. The game is based around a mechanic that cannot exist in our world, not in any realistically similar way at least. There is a fundamental difference in the physics of the world that is Kreedz, and this is thanks to its origin in a few older games, specifically the likes of Quake, Counter-Strike, and pretty much every Source Engine game within the custom server option. The games that led to this strange amalgamation of gameplay, also uniquely disconnected, yet remain united in their simple goals. Jump, slide, reach the goal, try again and again. You may take your time to accomplish this journey, you may take your time to learn these mechanics. So born into the very nature of video games and programming, so tied to the pretend reality that is video games. Come with us, slide along, perhaps with friends, perhaps with bots that can pass a basic Turing test. The journey is meaningless. Let us take it together. Is it not fun? The game asks you to be patient, yet nimble. The things you learn to master Kreedz Climbing do not apply to other games, at least not directly in any sense that I can see. If you try applying bunnyhopping from this game to Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you're essentially rolling a d20 and a d12 and hoping both land on 1. And if you try to apply the sliding mechanics to surfing, the only games that use this mechanic are dead games like Tribes Ascend or unpopular games like Midair. Ironically, the franchise that spawned bunnyhopping on accident maintains this mechanic in its latest game, Quake Champions, something I'm sure keeps Carmack up at night. But what about those of us who enjoy bunnyhopping? Not for war, not for anything else but the love of movement. Well then, Kreedz is one of the only options that doesn't have a focus on combat. But even then, all of the maps are simply ones you can find in other Source Engine games. So why then does Kreedz exist? Well, what initially drew my attention to this game was its design goals, and the fact that bunnyhopping in CSGO is a joke. I've always cared more about bunnyhopping over surfing, and after some time in Quake Champions, the itch was created and I needed it scratched. Along came Zaddy Kreedz, and now here I'm talking to you about the game designed around a series of mechanics that were never intended to exist in the first place. Kreedz Climbing is a game that will reintroduce you to itself, either via the tutorial, the occasionally populated servers, the ancient maps from CS 1.6, TF2, etc. that you find on the Steam Workshop. This game is not really a game. This game is a conservatory for bunnyhopping and surfing. This game is more like a toolkit for experimenting with a skill that is now essentially worthless. Yet I keep playing it. There is a complex pleasure to be had from successfully completing a series of pointless hops in one arbitrary placed block to the next, carefully adjusting the U-shaped air strafe to move yourself from one platform to the next, carefully adjusting myself because I randomly achieved the double-edged sword of a perfect bhop and gain far more speed than I want, either using it to land and complete the skill challenge, or falling only to instantly be brought back to the start point or the checkpoint and given no further instructions. The same platforms stare me down, challenging me to continue. It's clearly a metaphor for the 9 to 5. I mean, anyone who plays this game has to work a 9 to 5 besides the fewest of the few, right? It doesn't really matter. Well, it does, but that's not the center of the discussion. The reason anyone plays this game, like anyone or any game, is escapism. We must escape the real, so we journey to a different place. For some of us, that place handles friction differently, and if you hit the right frame, you'll accelerate through the air a little bit faster. Look, I think it would be awesome to bunny hop to work, and bunny hop through my workplace, and bunny hop on my boss and my coworkers' heads like I'm a CS pro. And doesn't using and focusing on a mechanic not intended to actually exist, that has been actively and intentionally phased out by an industry's focus on realism in their games, actually represent a radical counterculture, almost similar to an employee stealing work hours by going to the restroom, or arriving 15 minutes late while the company maliciously extracts surplus labor value of the employee? I can't attest to any real background or history with bunny hopping, but I'm in my early 20s, so I've never really lived in a world that didn't have Quake. In fact, Quake is actually as old as I am, and I'm sure this statement will date me in a couple years, as it will when I upload this, but it really speaks to the place and time of gaming that I grew up in. The concept of bunny hopping was known to me before I had ever gotten invested in any FPS game, let alone any competitive FPS game. I imagine for many, bunny hopping is something they enjoy in secret, while others focus on the more realistic mechanics of bullet drop and aim consistency. People like me want movement mechanics to scratch the itch. There is a zen to be found in this game, that is for sure, but the zen isn't something you find simply by playing this game. The zen you gain from achieving a flow state when moving through maps. The zen comes from subconsciously plotting out paths to move through each pattern, from simply absorbing the abstract shapes and textures as you fly past them, your movement of speed simply being units, an abstraction of an abstraction. Digital in nature, formless in the reality, and only existing in the confines of Valve's source engine. Here we exist, hopping and sliding through plains and fields designed only for us to attempt to complete. For me, this game leaves a sense of longing. It reminds me of a different game entirely. It reminds me of Tribes Ascend, a game I played during the beta that I plan to speak on more in depth in the future, but the key difference between my happiness then and now is isolation. When I played Tribes, the experience was with friends, with other humans, and of course, there was a specific competition with goals outside of the movement. Maybe my take on this game would be less lonesome wanderer if I had opted to wait for friends to come online and talk with me in voice chat, each hop representing a collaborative effort of understanding and fighting the level designed to push forward, conversations held into the dead of night, distinct unity of friendship and camaraderie, the community. Kreedz unintentionally brings about the intense emptiness of a game that has no community. For truly, what glory is there in a competition for a game that is never played? Is Kreedz never played? Well, no, there are servers, not many, but there are servers. There are likely people playing alone as well, but there is a deep loneliness to Kreedz that runs deeper, that isn't just the currently small player base. The intense loneliness of being a game to embrace and accept bunny hopping. This game could, and on Steam is, classified within the same genre as Mirror's Edge. Both games could be called, on some level, a parkour game. But where Mirror's Edge tries to closely imitate the reality of parkour, Kreedz Climbing is not rooted in this sense of reality. The form of locomotion found in these two games are wholly different. The games are, on the surface, the same, yet a glance at high-level play for either game demonstrates the intense differences. Mirror's Edge is designed for the player that wants to have their cake and eat it too. I love the game, but the focus on realism ignores the beautiful and strange movement given only through video games. Is there not a beauty in these humble, unintended byproducts of capitalism? I think in this game, there can be found a deeper meaning in the endless grind of work and the accumulation of capital. But mostly, I find it's a genuine escape into the alternative world of video games. Thank you for watching. After I finished playing Kreedz, I finally caved in and purchased Reflex Arena because someone had told me that there is a racing mode. That mode is fantastic, and I actually prefer the way that bunny hopping functions in that game much better than I see how it functions in Kreedz. Although there are less maps, the maps focus more on just movement versus in Kreedz where it has more of a focus on difficult jumps. If you enjoyed, please like the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that bell. I try to get at least 2 videos out a month. My videos are made possible by my patrons and other support. If you would like to become a patron and access my scripts, get videos before I upload them, or request a topic, check out my page. Until next time.